Good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I am Ken Walls and I'm your host. And I have a guy on today that actually has a really awesome podcast himself. And he invited me to be a guest on his podcast. And I'm like, after we did it, I was like, dude, you need to be on my podcast. So, you know, this guy's got well, you'll see. He's got a very cool disposition. You'll see. So I want to welcome Ben Gothard. Am I saying that right, Ben? Gothard.
Absolutely.
Gothard.
Absolutely. Thank you so much,
Ben,
Ken.
welcome to the show, man. Thank you for being on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure and an honor.
So Project Egg is the name of your podcast, just so everybody knows. He wore that intentionally to get attention. Which is awesome. I love that. So and just so thank you, Corey Calvin. There's some people on here already wishing me a happy birthday, but today on this show it's all about Ben and your story. And I created this show because I'm literally 51 years old today, and I have dude, I've been very, very blessed, and I've been very, very down, and everywhere in between. And so, about a year and a half ago, I'm like, maybe if I just create a show and let other people come on and tell their stories, it can help one person, maybe just one person. So, that's what this is about. Your story, dude. That's what it's
Cool.
about. So let's start with where you were born and raised, Ben.
Born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana.
New Orleans. I love New Orleans, man.
Me too.
It's a great
It's
city.
it's one of those really special places where most people come for tourism,
Yeah.
or for Mardi Gras or for the food. And so there's this whole touristy side of the city. But when you live there or live here,
Yeah.
there's such a cool other side of just culture and heritage, and of course food. It's awesome. I love living here. It's been really special.
My first time actually down in the, what do you call it? The French Quarter? French
Mm-hmm.
Quarter. Am I saying that right?
Uh-huh.
But like my first time was about a year ago, and there's a distinct smell of urine. Like, it's bad. I'm like, oh my God, what is that smell?
It's part of the culture and the heritage.
I'm like, oh my God, it's bad. But, it's a wonderful city. I think I told you last time we talked that, what are those little donut things called that you,
Beignets.
beignets? What's the place the famous place?
There's one really close to the French Quarter called Café du Monde.
That's it. Cafe du Monde. So my wife is like, oh my God, you have to go to Cafe du Monde while you're there. And I went, and dude, it was awesome. It was awesome, but it was hotter it was hot. And sitting in that, because, it's outside. Like, you're sitting, it's covered, but you're outside. And the humidity is not a joke down there, man. It's not a joke.
Absolutely.
So were you raised like in New Orleans, down in the that area, or whereabouts were you raised in the
Yeah, so
suburbs?
so right outside of the actual city
Yeah,
is a suburb called Metairie, and I've really lived there my whole life in a couple different houses, but all relatively close to each other.
right.
In Metairie, typically on really close to the levee.
Got it. Got it. So you were there during the big hurricane.
Yeah, so actually the house I was living in at the time, I'm sure you've heard of the 17th Street Canal.
Yep.
Well, there were two walls on the canal, I guess for better visual, two walls on the 17th Street Canal here and here. and on one side is Lakeview, and on one side is Metairie. So if this is the Metairie side, my house was right here. It was the third house from that wall, and in the middle there's this canal, right? So it's this little waterway.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was a barge or a boat or something had floated up in there where it shouldn't have been, and it hit the Lakeview side, and that wall collapsed. Whoa. And that's where a ton of water went in. So many houses got flooded. There was a lot of destruction, and so many people lost everything they had.
Wow.
If it had broken on the other side, that would have been my house. So I'm grateful in a lot of ways, and very sad by what happened in a lot of ways too.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was terrible. So growing up there, you went to school there. Did you go to college?
Yeah, so I actually went to the New Orleans Jewish Day School growing up.
Okay.
Up until 5th grade, then that's when the storm hit. Yeah. And then one of my best friends went to the school, Kiev, France, and they were one of the ones that opened up pretty early after the storm.
Yeah.
So I came back and I finished 5th grade there. I stayed one more year, and then I went to either a charter school or magnet school. It was like a public school, but it was like a nerd school, and I say that lovingly, of course. So I started that school in the 7th grade. And that was called Patrick F. Taylor Science and Technology Academy.
Yeah.
And so I went there, and I loved it. I loved it because it was a really small school. And so I could really be a big fish in a small pond.
Wow.
And it was just so much fun. And, I've always made straight A's in school. And so, it was a chance to really like challenge myself.
Yeah.
And take on harder curriculum and take on like AP classes and tougher classes with really, really good teachers. I had this one math teacher, Mr. AC, and he was from Greece.
Yeah.
And so he had a very strong accent. I loved the man. And he would always challenge us. I mean, he was teaching calculus and statistics, and I mean, he would absolutely bring like university level stuff into the classroom. And when we were in high school, and I mean, he was just an awesome teacher that challenged us every step of the way. So high school was awesome. I played cross country, or I ran cross country, did track. I played basketball. Was actually captain of the basketball team 11th and 12th grade.
Wow.
And interesting fact, it's a small school, so this isn't that cool, but it is kind of cool, I think. But when I left Patrick Taylor, I had scored the most points of any player for the basketball team in the school's history.
Wow.
So I love basketball. I loved it.
Wow.
And in addition, like I was president of the math club, Mu Alpha Theta, and another fact that I'm proud of. But when I was president, that was the very first year that we ever went to state for the competition, and totally a result of the rest of the team.
Yeah.
I was serving with Rockstars, so all the credit goes to them. But that was really fun. Started the mock trial team in school.
This was in college?
No, this was in high school.
Oh, high school.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So you've always been somewhat of an overachiever, like going after whatever. What from your... See, I think a lot of our lives as adults, obviously a lot of it's dictated by, or I don't know, influenced by something as small children, right? What was that? Who influenced you? What pushed you to do this stuff? I mean, dude, that's pretty incredible. The basketball, math, all of it.
Well, my parents, and not pushed in a bad way, and not really pushed at all, but more just like infinite amount of love and support and encouragement.
Yeah.
You know, if there is anything that that I could say as far as why I am the way I am and the reason for who I am as a person, it's totally my parents, my mom and dad, and I'm so infinitely grateful to them.
Wow.
For everything that they have always done and continue to do. I mean, they are the best people in the whole wide world, and I am so lucky to have them as parents. I mean, I think about luck a lot and just probability and chance, and I hit the jackpot. I mean, I hit the mega super total jackpot. I had the absolute. I mean, I'm the luckiest person in the world for the family that I was born into, starting with my parents, but then, with my grandparents too. Like, for example, my grandparents, they lived on a street that was like a U, right? And on one end of the U was one set of grandparents, and on the other side of the U was my other set of grandparents, so I could walk from one to the other in 5 minutes.
Wow.
And they were awesome, and they loved each other, and so I am so lucky. And the more I go about living and learning and hearing other people's stories, the more I realize just how special that really was. And I don't think I will ever truly understand that, but and I couldn't. There's no way I could articulate how grateful I am. But oh man, if there's anything that I could point to, it's my family.
Wow. So how do you really feel about it? I'm just kidding.
Lucky.
I know, dude. That's awesome, man. It's rare that I hear that, actually. Isn't that sad? That's sad. Yeah. But I know a lot of very successful, entrepreneurs that, and my story is like that, where it's like, there was a lot of turmoil, a lot of insanity and self-doubt that occurred. Doesn't sound like you experienced, or maybe you did, I don't know, but it doesn't sound like you've experienced much self-doubt in life.
That's a good question. When I was 13, or actually started when I was 12, I started studying for my bar mitzvah. So I'm Jewish. And I studied for a year. And the temple that I belong to is a modern Orthodox temple. Yeah. So it's, you basically, when you pray and when you read from the Torah and you do the Haftorah, which are just a bunch of different things that go into the bar mitzvah ritual. There's just a lot. There's a lot to read, right? And so when you're reading the Torah, not only is there just a lot of text, but trying to read it directly from the Torah is like trying to read without vowels. So it's really hard. It's very difficult, right? Yeah. So I had to study for a year in order to be able to do that. Right. And by studying for a year and by working at something consistently, time and time again, every week I had to work with my teacher. Every week I had to make sure that I was learning and doing it, or I'd make a fool of myself. I didn't want that. That would have been awful for a 13-year-old ego. But, right. But doing that and going through that experience and being able to stand with a sense of accomplishment. Yeah. And I'm sure pride and ego are there too. But being able to stand there and feel like on my bar mitzvah day, do what I needed to do what I said I was going to do, and be able to do it well, and to be proud, and to it was just a sense of accomplishment of like, I put in the work, and I freaking did it. Yeah. And so that taught me a lot. And I've been a lifelong reader ever since then. Yeah. And I really started to realize at that age, like, you can do anything that you want, right? You can do anything that you want. It's whether or not you want to figure out how. And once you figure out how, it's whether or not you want to pay that price, because there's a price to get anywhere. Yep. I mean, you can become a billionaire, but it's going to cost, right? And so I think the real question is not, can I do it? Because that's like, when people say they can't do it, that's just a limiting belief. I don't think that's real at all. Right. But when you get over that, and you can,
Yeah.
I mean, you may have to tell yourself a different story or redefine who you think you are or learn some new skills, whatever. But it's possible because other people have done it. So there's nothing that's stopping you from doing it.
Right.
But once you figure out, okay, I know I can do it. Now let me figure out how, and you take some time to figure out that how, which it'll come to you. Then you can see what it's going to cost, what that price is that you're going to have to pay. And that's the real decision.
Yep. Couldn't agree with you more. So much wisdom coming out. How old are you, man? I forget. You told me.
24.
24, man. Listen to the wisdom pouring out of this dude. So you grew up with like an amazing situation with parents and grandparents, excuse me. And I mean, it sounds like life's been pretty daggone not easy. I don't want to say easy, but it's been good. Have you hit any like things where you're like, this is it. I'm not getting through this. I don't know how to survive this.
To be honest with you, I'm really not sure I've ever faced anything quite like that. I mean, I think back to I think back to growing up as a Jew, right? And inherently there come a lot of things with that. It's part of the territory that are not super optimal. There's a lot of people who just hate me because of who I am, which is a little concerning. For being Jewish? Oh yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Somebody even asked me one time. They're like, "You're Jewish?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "I don't see any horns." I'm like, "Well, last time I checked, I didn't have any."
What?
So, yeah, it's crazy, and
that's crazy.
I know it's weird. It's bonkers, and people definitely hate just because maybe they don't know any better, or maybe they had an experience, or they've just now chosen to harbor this hatred. But that's always been there.
Wow.
And so I found that being raised in a very Jewish family, and being pretty active in my synagogue. I mean, 5 generations ago, my ancestors actually started my synagogue.
Wow.
And after Katrina, our building got wiped out. Remember I was telling you about the Metairie Lakeview?
Yep.
Well, right on the Lakeview side was my synagogue, and it got totally destroyed. I mean, our Torahs were destroyed, our books were destroyed, everything. It was a tragedy. It really was. Yeah. My grandmother became president and saved the shul. And she rallied the people because the community was dispersed, but she rallied the people. She saved the shul, and then my dad was president right after her, and he built the new building.
Wow!
And he was so those two, kind of that 1-2 punch of saving the shul, making sure it didn't die, and then rebuilding that building and setting us off on a new path of just a really strong path. That was very special. So the whole reason I bring that up is because I've been around my shul a lot, and so there's a lot of Jewish influence, and I know a lot of Jewish people. At the same time, my mom converted to Judaism before I was born. She was a Presbyterian, so half my family's Presbyterian, half my family's Jewish. So it's like, I've kind of seen both sides.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, still there are people that just hate me because I'm Jewish, and it just doesn't make sense.
I don't even know what that, like, to me. I totally don't get that. I really don't. Like, how, like, you just look like a dude to me. Is there something I should be looking for that I'm missing? What is it? Like, what the heck? That's ridiculous, man. I hate that. I really do. I think that, first off, I think that people who judge others, that says more about them than it does anyone that they judge. And second, if it's based on religious beliefs, you're a complete idiot. Like you literally are a moron. Like seriously, like that's so stupid. Like I can't even relate to it. So I apologize for the rest of humanity. That's just stupid. But anyway, like and let's talk about something else. Let's talk about regardless of whether you're Jewish, Christian, Muslim, I don't care what you are. You were on Grant Cardone's show. You were interviewed by Grant Cardone.
I actually interviewed Grant Cardone.
Oh, in his studio though.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible, dude. Tell everybody about that, because there's a lot of people that watch the show that know who Grant is, or they follow Grant, they look up to Grant. Some probably hate Grant. I mean, it's like he says, you got to have haters. But how did that happen? Like, dude, you're 24 years old. How in the heck did you make that happen?
Totally. So when I was 20, I'm in college as a sophomore. I had 2 phone calls that would change my life forever. The first was with my roommate, who called and asked if I could help him sell T-shirts. And the second was with my dad, who's an attorney here in New Orleans. Okay. And he asked if I would be his social media intern that summer. And so I told both of them, and it clicked in that moment. I was like, there's something here. I was like, don't hire me. I'd love to help you guys out, but don't hire me. Hire my company. I'm like, what are you talking about? And so I went and I started research, and I figured out that you could domicile a company in Metairie, Louisiana, an LLC, for $105. I was like, okay, I'm going to invest this money in a company. I'm going to create a legally legit company,
right?
And that'll be cool. And then I can actually say that I'm the actual CEO of an actual company. That's the worst that could happen,
right?
So I started to do that. Started to do social media. And I started to manage different people's accounts. I eventually, so I went to LSU for college, and I was a finance major. Mm-hmm. I actually switched from bio, and that's a whole different story I can tell you if you want. But I started managing the Department of Finance's social media, started to get a lot more experience there. So that was really, really cool. Yeah. I felt like that was a big, big break. And then I started to get some clients. Anyways, on the side, I learned about passive income, and I promise all this has a point.
I'm sure, yeah.
But I learned about passive income, and ironically enough, given that I'm Jewish, I was watching this YouTube video of a preacher, and he was talking about passive income.
Yeah.
And so one of the things he said was, you just have to publish an ebook on Amazon, and it can pay you while you're asleep, because people can buy it while you're sleeping. And I was like, that's cool. I love to sleep. I love to get paid. Doing those 2 things at the same time sounds like a really cool thing. So I started to write, and I was like, okay, I'm 21, or I was actually 20 at the time when I started writing it. I was like, what do I actually know about? Like, what do I know how to do? Right. I was like, well, I'm trying to chase my dreams. That's what's the most prevalent in my mind. Yeah. Let me just write about that. So I started writing about that. And then I started to get into research. Then I started to get into anecdotes. And then I started to put together this narrative that I just got so passionate about that I could not just let it be a simple ebook. So after a year, and I got different editors, and I interviewed people for the book. But it's called and on July 3rd, I published it. Wow. July 3rd, 2016, published my very first book, CEO at 20, A Little Book for Big Dreams. And so right after I published it, I was like, okay, now I have to market it. So I messaged every single person I'd ever met in my entire life. Just text, phone calls, Facebook message, Skype. I started a fire and tried to do the smoke circles.
Yeah.
But I messaged everybody that I'd ever met, and I quickly ran out of people because I didn't know that many people. So I was like, okay, I need to build my network.
Yeah.
And what my thought was is I'm going to build a marketplace of entrepreneurs and a group of entrepreneurs. That was going to be my marketplace because I was going to listen to their problems and I was going to write books to solve them. That was my plan.
Yep.
So that started Project Egg because as very few people know, the EGG is actually an acronym and it stands for Entrepreneurs Gathering for Growth. Right?
Love that, dude.
And so it started off as a Facebook group. And I started to slide into people's DMs hard and true and say, hey, would you be interested in joining this group? It's called Project Egg. And we're going to brainstorm. We're going to problem solve. We're going to be awesome together. You want to be a part of it. And people started saying yes. So people started joining the group. A couple hundred people joined the group. And I quickly realized that a lot of the people in the group were vastly more successful than I was at that time in the financial region. And so I think success is a lot of different facets.
Sure.
Anyways, so I was like, okay, instead of me trying to come up with all this stuff on my own, let me just ask them. So that's how the podcast started. And I started interviewing people. And on July 27th, 2016, so that would be 24 days after the book launched, 19 days after the group started, I published my very first interview with a gentleman by the name of Jeremy Colon. And this guy is awesome. He literally donated his kidney to save his father's life.
Wow.
And after that event, it totally changed his life and his mindset. He became an entrepreneur. Now he's crushing it. Anyways, so I started to interview more and more people, and that started to get so into that, and it was awesome. And so that's how the podcast really became a thing. So I'm running my agency, have my book. I started writing a lot, and so I started publishing more and more. Now I've published over 10 books, hit bestseller on Amazon in 3 different categories. But I was doing that. I was recording interviews. And then what I recognized was a lot of the people that I was connecting with on my interviews were freaking awesome. So I wanted to partner with them on certain things. So I started an e-com store with one of my interview guests. And on top of that, my friend from high school and I decided to launch a music festival in New Orleans. And it was at the local New Orleans college. And there's this huge amphitheater that we secured the usage of, and we got local artists, and we got to show their wares, show their art, local musicians to come play.
Wow.
We recruited some nerds, again I say that lovingly, to come bring video game stuff set up so people could play, and we recruited our moms to come and help us sell food. And so it was awesome. It was a whole ordeal, right? And we did that 3 years running, but we called it Finals Fest because 2 weeks before the final exams in college, that's when you really have to buckle down and study. But the day before the 2 weeks started, that's when everybody partied hard. So we put our music festival on that day, and we called it Finals Fest. That'd be the last day you could throw down before you had to hunker down. So anyways, all that stuff was going on. There's also a little bit of a time that I was part of I was coding, and I was doing a trading algorithm startup. Just for a little while. Anyways, all those things were going on, and I was trying to do school, and every once in a while I was trying to sleep. So I was going nuts. So I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I decided to cut out everything except for my podcast. And I decided to focus on my podcast, right? And then I had shoulder surgery because I tore I forget, maybe my labrum or something in my shoulder. So I was out of commission. And you can if you have a messed up shoulder, it's really hard to do an interview because you're trying to control the thing with one hand and you're trying to focus. And so I was like, okay, I have to take a break. So then I couldn't do anything. Well, in that time, I emailed Grant Cardone. And I said, Grant, and by this time I had interviewed Patrick Bet-David and Pat Flynn and Kim Garst and Nicholas Kuzmich. So some really top, in addition to all the other extraordinary guests, which I'm very grateful for, every single one of you guys and gals. I love y'all. But some bigger names where once you start interviewing some top-notch people, that can lead you to other top-notch people. It's like A+ people recruiting A+ people. Anyways. So I messaged Grant, and I was like, hey, man, I would love to interview on the show. This is how much this is how much of a social media following I've built. This is the purpose of the show. These are some of the past guests that have come on. It would be an honor to have you on the show, and this is my life's work, so I really mean that, and it would really be an honor to have you on the show. Yeah. So that was the beginning of 2018, and he was so cool because he answered me, and he said, I'll never forget this. He said, "Ben, thanks for the opportunity to work with you," which so
I know, right?
So, dude, that was so perfect. I mean, I will forever respect him just for that answer. In addition to all the other reasons there are.
He's a classy guy, man.
Classy guy. And I was like, this is a real professional. So he replied to me and he said, "Thanks for the opportunity to work with you. Reach back out in 12 months. So I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. It's on. So I put a bunch of notifications in my calendar.
Yeah.
Whole 12 months went by. Oh, and by the way, at the end of that 12 months, this is now the end of 2018, I had fully recovered from my shoulder stuff.
Yeah.
I'd been out traveling. I went and hiked Pikes Peak in Colorado, which is a 14,000-foot mountain.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
So I had really done some soul searching and traveling. And what I realized is that Project Egg is my true passion. That's what I love.
That's awesome, what I love, dude.
More than anything else at that time. Of course, in the business world, family for me always comes first. So let's just want to make sure that distinction is clear. Yeah. So 2018, December 1 rolls around, and you bet I had like 47 calendar notifications all blaring at me like, reach out to Grant, out to Grant. And I'm like, today's the day. It's going to be awesome. So I get on my computer, and I hit reply, and I'm shaking a little bit. Yeah. Because this is like magical for me. Yeah. And so I send this message, and I'm like, Grant. I replied to his message saying to wait 12 months. So I was like, Grant, I've been waiting for this all year. Who do I need to talk to get this done? And he directed me to the appropriate person. I then had to follow up with that individual for about maybe 4 months. Right. And then eventually that person was like, okay, we're doing it. Here's the date. Do you want to do it in person or on Skype? And I was like, wait a second. What does in person look like? Right. Right. And the response I got was, in our professional studios with our professional camera crew. Right. Duh. Duh. Right. And I was like, sign me up. I already bought my ticket. I'm there. Yeah. And it just so happens one of my good friends happened to be, studying for something for med school down there in Miami. So I hit him up. I was like, dude, can I please crash on your couch? And he's like, absolutely. So that's how it happened.
That's awesome, dude. So you went to Miami, and that's awesome. So you have you've had some big. I mean, Patrick Bet David is what, a trillionaire. I mean, he's a pretty big name. I don't know how he's incredibly wealthy, and really he puts out some amazing content. Really amazing content. And obviously, Grant, you've had some big names on your show. But I mean, in the entrepreneurial world, like I do my show, it's free. I've had people reach out and say they want to sponsor my show, and I turn everybody down. I want to do this for free. I'm not running ads. I'm not promoting anything. I'm trying to promote other people. I want this to be free forever. And I want to protect the integrity of my show. And so, how are you making money? I mean, I know I've been a guest on your show. You're not advertising. You're not doing any of that stuff. How are you being like? Are you in your mom and dad's basement?
So, the way is something that I feel like. It has to do with people, right? Like, like, I made a decision not too long ago to because I was always kind of searching for like, what's my thing? Is it
Yeah.
writing? Is it interviewing? Is it speaking? Is it coding? Is it cooking? Whatever. And
Right.
what I realized was, and when I made a decision, was that my skill, what I'm going to hone, is the ability to work with people.
Yeah.
I want to develop people skills, social skills.
Yeah.
Those are the things that I feel like I had some innate talent, but I've really tried hard to study people, to be
Yeah.
curious, to learn
Yeah.
really how to work with people. And through that, I found myself in a situation where I've been able to build a really deep network.
Yeah.
So whether that be from the show, whether that be from just doing business for multiple years, and I had an agency for a while and an e-com store, and I was doing other things before, and like you could sell books, you make money from books. So all of that money that I've had, I've also saved, and I've been investing since the ninth grade. Um,
Wow. Good
so
for you.
I have this mindset of taking the long term approach
Yeah.
to almost everything that I do, right? Like when it comes to relationship, but specifically relationships, right?
Yeah.
There is not ever a time, hopefully, hopefully, people don't think this when I'm trying to build a relationship with them, but I never try to go for a short term transactional
Yeah.
type of interaction
Right.
ever.
Right.
The ROI on that is awful. It's bad for business, and
Yeah.
it's just not fun, right?
Yeah.
But the way I look at it is, if you befriend somebody and you earn their trust, not any sort of manipulation, but you're just a good person, you bring depth of character, you earn their trust,
Yeah.
you are then a friend, you're on the same team. Then instead of trying to sell them one widget,
Yep.
you can explore all the possibilities of business.
Yep.
You can explore partnership opportunities. They may be a customer. You may be a customer. They may be a mentor. You may be the mentor. You never know. It could be all of the above at different times
Right.
throughout life. So what I realized is a lot of the people that I'm building relationships with, they need to meet each other because they can do business together.
Yeah.
And so this kind of spun this kind of interesting idea of connecting people in my network and structuring deals
Yeah.
and participating in creating wealth, and when it's appropriate, participating in the wealth that is created.
Yeah. Dude, that's
So
awesome, man. And that's, I think I told you I've got people that call me the plug, the connector. So I get it. And I've spent, a lot of years building my network, and it blows me away. I was literally having this conversation yesterday with somebody. I'm like, dude, like the contacts, the cell phone numbers. I mean, I have Grant Cardone's cell phone number. The cell phone numbers of people that I have in my phone is mind blowing. Just some of the people that have already sent me a happy birthday message. It's like, I can't even believe you took time out of your incredibly busy schedule for that. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that anybody's better than anyone else. That's not what I mean. But somebody that has, over $1 billion in real estate assets, like they're busy, right? I mean, there's people out there that are, so it takes time. It really, truly does. It takes time. What do you think? And again, this is your opinion. Doesn't mean that everybody on here has to accept it as the truth for them. But like, what do you think stops? Because dude, okay, so Andy Frisilla and I were talking the other day on my show, and that dude has 30 some odd very expensive cars, right? He has a $500,000 Lamborghini. He's got everything, right? And I said, dude, you get on Instagram, sometimes on Facebook, but Instagram's huge for it. You see these 20, 21, 22-year-old kids taking pictures with freaking private jets and Lamborghinis. And I'm like, and he goes, yeah, no. Like, I'm not saying, listen, I'm not saying that it's not possible. I'm just saying that, like, like, so, like, what is it that you think, and it doesn't even have to be based on what I just said, but, like, what do you think is holding most of these, and we'll go for your generation, the younger people, what's holding them back from success?
I actually think it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about, which is very few people want to take the long-term approach.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example.
Do you have a Lamborghini?
No. I would much rather take that money and invest it
Right.
and ramp up my my portfolio, because I've taken a lot of time to carefully build that and put a lot of time into that. But, like, for example, I was talking to my friend yesterday about this, and he's the same gentleman who I stayed in Miami with during for the interview, and now he's back in New Orleans, and he's I think he's about to be a resident or something, somewhere in the med school process.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were talking about, what once he started crushing it, making, a doctor's salary, and he wants to be like a cardiothoracic surgeon, or, something cool like that, helping a lot of people, making a ton of money. And I was asking him, well, what's your long-term investment strategy? And he's like, I don't know. I haven't thought about that yet.
Right.
And I was like, dude, I would highly encourage you to really start educating yourself on what your investment strategy is. And the reason why is because most people think that you have to just take your money and that you have to make 400% in a year. And then that's how you do it. You just bet it all on red, and then you double up.
Right. Right.
But in my opinion, the people who are truly the long-term winners are those that deploy sound investment principles over an extended period of time, and not the most important part is protecting the principal. So don't lose money, like Warren Buffett says. Yeah. So don't lose money, and then find ways to allow your money to work for you in ways that it can grow. Now, I think one of the coolest things on the planet is compounding interest, or just compounding, right?
Yeah.
If you have $10,000 and you invest that intelligently and very very moderate gains. You're not taking, it's low risk. You're taking low risk, right?
Yep.
But you let that money, you start when you're in your early 20s, and you let that money grow over time.
Yep.
You let it grow and compound on itself over and over and over again. You're letting time and money work for you. And the only way that that's going to happen is if you take a long-term approach, because if you get caught up in the next Bitcoin and dump everything into one single cryptocurrency, like, just as an example, I have nothing against cryptocurrency. I think there are a lot of really cool things, but it's just an example, right?
Sure.
You put all your money there. Well, yeah, you could become an uber trillionaire, but you could also lose every penny that you have ever had, right?
Yep.
And I would rather take the long-term approach of steady, consistent, compounding growth.
Yeah.
And that, from an investment side, from a financial side, in my opinion, is the strongest way to build long-term wealth. And from like a trying to achieve success side, I think it's the same thing. I don't think, with very few exceptions, like the Mark Zuckerbergs, I just don't think most people are going to go from 0 to $1 billion within 1 year, because to me, that's really not that predictable. So you can't really create that. I mean, you could try, but what I would rather do, and what I'm trying to do and hopefully doing, is trying to take the long-term approach of creating deals, structuring partnerships, building my network, and letting all of those things compound. And here's the thing, especially if you're young, right? If you're in your 20s, what I would highly suggest that you do, start thinking about the people that you know. Think about who is the most successful person you know, and think about who do they hang out with.
Yep.
And try to figure out how to hang out with the people they hang out with, right? Like go hang out with successful people and listen to them. Ask them, what is your story? Ask them about themselves. Learn about who they are as people, where they are in life, how they got to where they are now. And then you'll start to see, wait, this person definitely needs to know that person. Yeah. Right. And so you keep doing that. You keep meeting more people, growing your network. And by the way, it could be as simple as, let's say you don't know anybody that's successful. You can go on Facebook or LinkedIn right now, message rich people or successful people or whoever you want to message and say, can I please ask you a question? I would just really appreciate 5 minutes of your time to ask you how you got to where you are. And if you message enough people, they'll say yes. Right. You just slide into their DMs fearlessly. Just do it. I promise you nothing bad will happen. Eventually, you could start building your network. Eventually, you will start seeing opportunities there that present themselves. And the beauty is when you start to structure deals between other people, you're a connector and you're putting pieces together, you have no risk. You don't have to put up money. You can structure a deal where you take a piece of it or you capture part of the wealth that you're creating. And because you're putting in your time, you can make money. You can capture wealth. You can somehow figure out a way. And the best is when you start to work with people who have recurring business models. So you start to get that recurring passive income. So that's what I would suggest is like a strong long-term approach to consistent growth. But here's the other thing. There's so many people that I meet all the time that they talk about wanting more, or maybe they're just like where they are right now and they're not satisfied with it, but they're not actually doing anything to change their situation.
Right.
Nothing is going to change until you decide to change it.
Yep.
Like, Ken, there's an awesome quote that I saw on Skype: be the change you want to see in the world, on your Skype. Yeah. It's a great quote. I love that. Yeah. Right. It's so true.
It's 100% true.
It's 100% true. And in my opinion, the best way to make that change is to learn, to be a sponge, especially when you're young. Be a sponge. Read, watch interviews, listen to this show, listen to people, listen to podcasts of successful people. Just get good information and feed your mind. You can go on YouTube right now and you can look up any successful person, and there's either a documentary about that person or they have a book out or anything. You can go to Audible, you can go to, like I said, YouTube, you can go on podcasts. Most of them are free. Like you can go to like a Goodwill store, something like a garage sale, and there are books there, and just read and feed your mind. And what happens is, as you learn, as you grow, and as you feed your mind, you are elevating your level of consciousness. And I know that may sound weird, but when you have more intellectual tools with which to understand the world with, and you know things, you start to understand why the world works that way. You start to understand how to do things. You start to just learn and grow your knowledge base. Yeah. You are raising your level of consciousness. And at a certain level, you'll start to see things, or let me rephrase that. You'll start to notice things that you didn't notice before. Right. And a lot of those opportunities, those deals that are out there, they've always been there. They've always been there, but it's not that the deal wasn't given to you, is that you didn't notice it. Exactly. And I'll be the first one to say, there have been so many deals where I just didn't notice, and I'm like, oh, duh, of course that was there in front of me the whole time, but I wasn't on the right level of awareness. I wasn't in the right state of consciousness, so I didn't recognize it. And so at some point you keep increasing your level of consciousness, you'll see these deals, these opportunities,
Right.
these possibilities.
Right.
And that's when you can strike, and that's when you can make your mark. But it's a consistent thing. You consistently need to grow your awareness. You consistently need to take yourself to a higher level of consciousness. You consistently need to grow. I read typically between 2 to 6 hours a day. I mean,
Yeah.
I try to study people relentlessly. I try to take action immensely. I try to exercise a lot. So always just growing little by little. If you grow 1% every day, over time, that will compound.
It will.
And that is a really good rate of return that will serve you for the rest of your life.
That's why, Andy Frisilla brought up I brought it up when I interviewed him, the 75 hard. And my wife and I just started this. Today's day 4. And it's working out twice a day for 45 minutes each. One of those workouts has to be outside regardless of the elements. My wife already worked out in the rain outside today. And then watching your diet, following a diet, no cheat meals, no alcohol, reading 10 pages out of a book, which I already do. But, I'll tell you though, honestly, I listen to a lot of books, right? I listen to Audible stuff and actually picking up a hard copy of a book and reading it is so much more valuable. And I've gotten lazy over time, and I quit picking up those books. I have a library filled with books, right? But that's one of the things that and then it's what's the other one? Drink a gallon of water a day. And dude, already in 3 days, I've noticed this unbelievable change, not just physically, but mentally as well, for me, for my wife. And I'm seeing it. We have this private Facebook group of all these other people, 37 or 38 other people that are doing it. It's all at the same time. And it's, so I agree with you, man. You gotta fix what's going on up here before you can ever manifest it in your life. It's just not gonna happen. Like, no matter how many Lambo pictures you take in front of somebody else's Lambo, no matter how many jets you rent for the day, like, it doesn't matter. It's not gonna happen. So I love what you said. I mean, you went deep. But summarize in one sentence or 2 sentences what you think, all of the stuff you just said. Give me in 1 sentence, 2 sentences, what's stopping people from success?
That's a really good question.
I know.
In 1 or 2 sentences.
Yeah.
Usually, it's yourself.
Sure. It is.
Plain and simple.
That's a great summary, because I agree with you. And if anybody doesn't agree with you, then they really need to think about what you just said. So, okay, last question for you. I can't even believe it. We've been on here an hour already. Almost. If somebody were to call you and they said, Ben, I've tried everything. I just can't seem to get it together here. I'm broke. My car was repoed last week. They're shutting my electric off tomorrow. Can't even buy food right now. I don't know what else to do. I'm at the end of my rope. What do you say to that person? What do you say? I mean, because I've been there. I had my vehicle repossessed in front of my employees one time. I've been there. I've been through some really serious crap. Again, it was me, but at the time that I'm trying to convince the guy not to take my car, I felt like a loser, man. And I mean, you can't, like, if somebody would say, well, this is your fault, I probably would have punched him in the face. So what do you say to somebody that's literally like, it's all falling apart and they can't figure it out?
This too shall pass. And I think there's a very powerful duality in that quote, this too shall pass.
Yeah.
That in the bad times, the lowest of the lows, bottom of the barrel. I mean, absolute rock bottom.
Yeah.
It will always pass. And on the other side, when you're at the highest of highs, and you're playing in the stars, dancing on the moon, that will pass too. And I think it's really helpful because when you're at that low point, that gives you the hope that you need and the courage to just say, this freaking sucks right now.
Yeah.
But I'm going to get through it. And on the other side, so there's that hope part. But on the other side, I think that is really good place for gratitude to say, I'm so lucky to be where I am and to have what I have and to have the people around me that I have and so much. I'm so lucky. So hope and gratitude, I think, come from this too shall pass, and I believe that's one of the most powerful principles or ideas that you can hold with you, because when you have it, and you know it, and you truly feel it, then nothing can stop you.
Dude, I've met some unbelievably successful people worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and I'm using financial as a gauge because I know so many people are like, you don't need money to be happy. No, you don't. You do not. But you do need money to help more people, and you need money to pay your bills. You need money to eat. You need money. The more money you have, the more people you can help. So I agree. You don't have to have it to be happy. I can be happy living under a bridge, because that's a mindset. And the book, in fact, the book that really shifted my perspective in life was many, many years ago, written by Viktor Frankl, called Man's Search for Meaning. And if you haven't read that book, read
It's
it.
amazing. It's amazing.
The best book ever written. But so when you have that shift you're talking about, when you go from I meet these really super successful people, and I'm like, one thing they all have in common is this: they're incredibly grateful, and they all will say almost verbatim what you just said. I didn't really. I mean, I'm lucky. I don't know how it happened. I just worked my face off, and God smiled upon me. I don't know. Right? They all kind of have that in common. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do think so. And I also think that when you truly look at what it takes to be, to be successful or to have it all,
Yeah.
I think it's helpful to look at it in 7 domains. And one of my mentors taught me this, so I'm not taking credit for this at all. But 7 disciplines, if you will.
Yeah.
Financial, industrial, emotional, spiritual, physical, relational, and intellectual.
Yeah.
And so, if you're expanding in all of these 7 different areas, 7 disciplines, you're moving forward, and you are growing in all of those areas, that is where I truly feel that you are the most successful. And one of those is financial. Absolutely.
Yep.
There is no reason why you shouldn't be expanding in that area too. It's
Agreed.
not a bad thing. Money is not a bad thing.
Nope.
Money can be used for evil in the wrong hands.
Sure.
But in the hands of a responsible and good person like yourself, money is a very good thing, because you can do a lot of good with it. And all of the 7 disciplines are really, really important. So that's another thing that I've noticed.
That's awesome, dude. Well, man, we are at the end of the hour. Dude, I appreciate you taking the time to come on. It's been fun. I hope I'm around to see what you create 20 years from now, because I think you are You got it going on, dude. You really do.
Well, thank you so much for that, and I
Yeah.
appreciate you having me on your show.
Thank you, and thanks for having me on your show. It's the way it works. So thank you to everybody who's watched this, been on here, the comments, the likes, the loves, the laughing cry faces. I love those. So I do, man. I just love those. We got a sad face in there somewhere. I don't know how, but anyway, thank you to everybody that's watched this. Hang on for me for a minute if you would, Ben. And Ben, thank you again. Everybody, make sure you go follow Ben on social media everywhere, right?
Yep,
Just Ben
absolutely
Gothard.
everywhere. Either Ben Gothard or Project Dig
Project Dig.
should pop
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate it. We'll see you guys later. Have a great day.